Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm going to talk from back here. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is we got a camera over there, and we got at least, we had 120 so people register virtually, which is great. And it's really even better to have people in person with us this morning. I'm Drew Pearson. I'm the Dare County Emergency Management Director. It's great to have you all with us to share a little bit about hurricane preparedness efforts. We are really excited because Eric Hayden's here with us. Eric is the warning coordination meteorologist down at the Newport-Morehead City Weather Service office, and they're our go-to points for that weather information we need, along with the National Hurricane Center. And standing behind me is the meteorologist in charge from Newport-Morehead City. I say that because it's really great to have, I'm not sure if it's number one and number two or number one and number three, but the top leadership of our local weather forecast offices here in Dare County with us. They were just down with us in Avon. They know our county, and they know the weather, and they know how to tell you about it. So what we're going to do is Eric's going to give a presentation, go through some stuff. He's going to hand it off to me to put a little icing on the cake from a Dare County perspective. At any point in time, Eric's going to manage the online meeting with questions, but at any point in time, don't hesitate to ask a question. We want to get you the information that you need. The reason you're here is to get informed, I hope, and help you get ready for what may, it's going to come sooner or later, whether or not it's next week or next year. We're going to have a storm here in Dare County, and everybody needs to be ready for it. I also want to introduce Bobby Alton, our county manager, who's with us today. Bobby has been here for a couple of years, more than a lot longer than I have. He's seen a lot. So if you've got questions, historical type stuff, Bobby, thanks for joining us this morning as well, being with us for this group. So with that said, Eric, all yours.
All right, really appreciate it, Drew. Appreciate you having us up here. This is one of the best countries in the country. I'm not just saying that because Drew's here. Very well prepared for rip currents to all hazards. And I'd be remiss, I should have pointed this out before. We're going to cover a lot of material today. If you just remember a few key points up on the slide, and for those at home, do one thing now to get prepared. If you just do something after this talk, that would be a good step in the right direction. Focus on the impacts, never just focus on the category of the storm, and water's what's killing people. If you just remember that, you're in good shape as you leave here today. If you're like me and you get forgetful, take one of these guides home. If you're watching online, you can hook up with Drew at the office here. These are fantastic. Everything we're talking about is in here, not to focus on the category of the storm. Storm surge is one of our biggest issues here in Dare County, but we're also concerned with rainfall, wind, rip currents, and tornadoes. It's in here. He's going to talk about storm surge polls. What is storm surge? It's in here. He's going to talk about messaging and alerting that you can sign up for here in Dare County. It's in here. So please, if you do anything, pay attention to that slide and take this home with you because it's really, really good information.
And for our online folks that are online, it is available on our website. Just go to Dare County Emergency Management Online. There's a PDF file. You can look at it online. And if you're here and you want to take a few more back and give them out of church or somewhere else, we got them. We'd love to get them into other people's hands. So please take some with you as well if you want some.
Drew, no, that's great. Drew brings up an excellent point. The whole community is not here today, and that's all right. We have people working out of town. Share this information with them. This is being recorded on purpose so they can view it on YouTube. Share it with them. And just like he mentioned, these resources are available in the community. Take some and help us get them out. So show of hands, how many have heard that it's going to be a busy year this year? The hurricane outlook, sounds kind of scary, and it is just a forecast. The forecast can go awry sometimes, so that's part of it. But a couple things I want to point out. We usually don't spend a lot of time on this forecast, not because it's not good, but until I can tell you that Dare County is going to have 0 storms or 2 storms, and it's going to be 1 tropical storm and a couple hurricanes. Until we get to that point, doesn't really do you any good. You should prepare each and every year, no matter what, because it just takes 1 storm. It could be the wimpiest hurricane outlook on record, and we just get 1 storm the whole year, just 1 storm. But if it hits Dare County, it's a big deal. So again, the forecast, you should be preparing no matter what. With that said, 85% chance we expect an above normal year. So that's something unique to this season. That's us waving our hands saying we're especially concerned that it could be quite active. If you have more storms, you have more of a chance to get hit. So that's kind of why we're spending a few more seconds on it. One of the best resources that you can have is our local weather service office in Newport. You may say, I'm in Manteo today. Why do I want to listen to somebody down in Newport? That's 3 hours, 2 hours and 50 minutes if we're keeping track. door to door to get here. We have 122 offices in the country, Washington, DC, Alaska, Hawaii, all over. That is a local perspective. We have roots in Dare County back to 1874. We had an office out in Hatteras, Buxton. So we've been in the community a long, long time. We're up here quite a bit. So we're a trusted local resource that has been in the community. So use that information. Your tax dollars pay for it. It's about $4 a year to fund us per person. Radar, satellite, hurricane forecasting, all those resources you have at your fingertips, it's from you, your tax money at work. So why not use us? That's the website. Our joke with that, I like to do jokes, is if it's the weather you love, it's weather.gov. So weather.gov, as long as you remember that wherever you go in the country, and just click on your part of the country. If you're with the tech generation, you can scan that QR code. And there's forecasts and there's a lot of good information, but specifically tropical, anything you have from the Hurricane Center is on our website. So local briefings, the forecast cone, storm surge, it's all on our website. So if you just want to go to one-stop shop, just use our website for that. I mentioned the Hurricane Center, they're part of us. We're all part of the National Weather Service. A lot of really good information there. One thing you should be looking at is this tropical weather outlook pretty much every day. A show of hands, how many have seen this before or look at it already? So a decent amount. For those that haven't, it's updated 4 times a day. You don't have to look at it 4 times a day, but first thing in the morning, hey, do I need to worry about anything over the next 7 days? And what it's going to show you is over the next 7 days, is there a low, medium, or high chance of something forming, noted by the yellow, orange, or red, or are there actual storms out there? We want this map to be blank, and it says something like nothing's forecast in the next 48, 72, or 7 days. That's what we want. This is an example from the past. This is the example from this morning. So that X is what an area we're watching. That hatched area is not necessarily a track. It's in the next 7 days, it's a 60% chance that something could form in that area. So sometimes people see it as a track, like moving up the coast or moving toward Florida. And not necessarily, it's just that's kind of the area that, hey, we're going to be really watching this here as we head into this weekend. So it's a good thing to check. This is a reminder, since this is this morning, this is not an old one, not to alarm anyone. We don't know what's going to happen next week. It's too far out. But it is a kick in the butt to say, hey, I know I should have done this. I should have done this. Maybe I should get that case of water. Just a reminder that maybe I should start working on my hurricane kit because we are in the midst of hurricane season. Another good thing to look at that you probably already see, whether it's on the Weather Channel or the local news, I'm almost positive you've seen this. Where's the storm going to go? Forecast cone. This shows the most probable path for just the center of the storm. That's spoken like a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but that is what it is. It shows you where it is most likely for the center to go. It could go outside of this path, but most of the time it's in that path. But a hurricane is not a dot on a map. If a hurricane hits Myrtle Beach or even Morehead City, it doesn't mean you're not going to have it here in Dare County. And we're going to reemphasize that here coming up. But this is a good, should I be paying attention or not? And should you be paying attention if it's anywhere from Florida up through Delaware? And the answer is yes. It's not an in or out thing. Like right now, this is with Ian. We had more impacts down our way, but if it's anywhere near you, you should be paying attention. In fact, as it gets closer, it's going to get skinnier because we're more accurate a day out. We're pretty good at telling you where the landfall is going to be a day out, but it doesn't show all the impacts, how much rain, how much surge you're going to get. So please, when you're looking at this, do not think of it as an in or out type of situation. So I polled the room before we came in here today, and we got about half that have not lived here more than 5 years. And that's pretty typical for these hurricane talks we give. We get a lot of new folks, and then we've got experienced folks in the room as well. So those that have a little more history, some of you may not have lived here long enough to have experienced this storm, but we're gonna play a little trivia game. It's not a Wednesday night trivia, but we'll say Wednesday morning trivia. Name that storm. This storm occurred in October. It had the highest recorded surge on Hatteras Island, so lots of surge. You can see from the forecast cone, 48 hours out, it was approaching South Carolina coastline and kind of curving out to sea and doing a little loop. We really weren't sure. It's a very slow moving storm at this point. So high surge, especially down at Hatteras Island. It was a late season storm. Does anybody know what it is?
Dorian?
Not Dorian,
No.
close in terms of impact, really, Ocracoke and Hatteras Island, but.
Oh, is that Irene?
Not Irene.
No, Irene, no, because I know.
She's naming all the
Southside.
big ones. That's good. You're on the right path.
Sorry, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you're on the right path. So, my youngest son is named Matthew, and it is Hurricane Matthew. He was not named after that storm. We were in New York at the time. But the reason why I wanted to show you this is look at that forecast tone. And it snuck up the coast a little bit more than what this graphic shows. The point is, we're not in that forecast cone 48 hours out, and we had one of the highest surges recorded on Hatteras Island. And up here in Nags Head, we were even, northern part of Dare County, we were even farther away from the center, and we had flooding from the heavy rain. So if you are anywhere near that cone, you should be paying attention. That actual, it never had landfall up here, but you can see the center a couple days later was up toward Hatteras Island, so it inched a little farther north. So with that cone, it can go out of it sometimes. So if you're anywhere near it, you should be paying attention. That's the reason why we want to focus on that. There's a lot of emphasis on what is the category and where is it going to make landfall. It's important. Otherwise, we wouldn't be tracking these storms, but it's not the end all be all. If you're anywhere near it, you should be paying attention. So those graphics are on the Hurricane Center site and ours, and also some of these other colorful ones. The one on the left we really like was made a couple years ago, started. It shows you when the winds are going to get here, either most likely or earliest reasonable, we call worst case scenario. So if you're making a decision to leave, you want to clean up your yard, you want to board up, whatever you want to do, that's your timeline. So in this case, say we're in Georgia, by Thursday evening would be the most likely time that the strong winds get there. And on the right, Drew's going to go into this more in depth storm surge. We have maps that show what we think the possible storm surge is across a certain area in a depth above ground. And we're going to cover that here a couple more slides. So a lot of really, really good information on the Hurricane Center site or from our site itself. And last but not least is social media. We're all over the place. I still call it Twitter. I know it's X, YouTube, Instagram, wherever we are there. Social media is a way to spread a lot of information, good or bad information. And you have access to a ton of information. You are not without information. Your job is to cut through the noise, focus on official, consistent messages. Doesn't mean that we get the forecast 100% right every time. What it does mean, however, you're getting a forecast from an office that's down the road from you, that's open 24/7, that's going to have a consistent message that's not going to change and waffle all over the place. So you don't need to needlessly worry about all the other noise, about storms that never get here, that are 2 weeks out, and all of that. Just focus on consistent messages, because that's what you're going to be able to make your decisions on, not something that's all over the place. And that's where we put a lot of our emphasis is on social media. If you search NWS Morehead City on any of those avenues, you can find us. And the one I really like is YouTube. The recording today is going to be on there, but when I brief Drew or when David briefs Drew, that 5 to 10 minute video, that's put on YouTube. So if you want to know exactly what we're talking to the county about, that is on our social media channels. We're here today to talk about hurricane season and preparedness. One of a good resource is the guide. The state has information, and then we also have a local page. If you're familiar with our page, just add hurricane prep. Anything there, graphics on how to prepare your home, evacuation routes, what to have in your kit, graphics in Spanish, videos for the deaf and hard of hearing. The last bullet is important. Planning now is key. Storms are stressful. Think about your life and when you've made good decisions and bad decisions. When you're under stress, sometimes you haven't made the best decision. That's life. That you just make the best decision you can. But I guarantee you, if you go to the store today, there's going to be water. There's gas at the gas station. You can check your generator. It's easy going. Not a lot of hubbub. There's no imminent storm on the horizon. If there's a storm 3 days out, those things are going to be lacking in the community. You're going to be stressed. So if you think about your evacuation now, you think about what's happening in your kit, you're going to make great decisions. So then when it's here, you know exactly what to do. And that's one less thing you have to worry about. So that's why we really are preaching preparedness early in the season as much as possible. We try to break it down into steps. When the news interviews us, sometimes they'll ask, what's the biggest message? And we try to break it into small steps so that you can digest it. The first step is really determining what is your risk. And it's not just weather related, but it is weather related. Are you in a low-lying area? Have you had storm surge? You're in a risky area in Dare County, especially if you're, by bodies of water. But it also includes who lives in your home. If you're a younger person and you're single, you can just pick up and go. If you've got kids, elderly parents, pets, lots of pets, whatever, that's higher levels of vulnerability. If I lose air conditioning, I love air conditioning. It's great. If I lose it, it's uncomfortable, but I'm not on oxygen. I'm not reliant on electricity for my life. So your vulnerability is all those things. And that's what you need to consider when you're thinking about hurricane preparedness. The second step is your kit. And a lot is determined by this. If you're somebody that's not going to leave, then you better have a pretty good kit. We say 3 days, bare minimum, food, water, medicine, anything that you have to survive. So obviously food and water, but again, this includes young children, pets. If you're low on prescriptions, get those filled. If you wear contacts, make sure you have plenty of those. Anything you would need. You're not just gonna be able to go out to the store after a storm and get what you need. If you can, do a week. The more you have to be on your own and not rely on outside entities is better, because it's going to be a while to get back in order. So having a kit is crucial. And we like to say have it in a tub or a to-go bag. If you decide to evacuate, you take your kit with you. You've got 3 teenagers in the house and you eat your way through the kit in the wintertime, then you just replace that kit the following year. So your snacks, your goodies, whatever you need, something that you can take and go if you do evacuate is a good thing. So have that kit, what's your vulnerability, and the last step, have a plan to get out of here. A lot of times people that especially have lived here for a long time, have been through some of the bigger storms, have never left and don't intend to leave. And they've been okay because they're still here today. We can get worse storms than we've had before. And we really want to encourage you to at least have a plan now so you know where to go if it's really going to be bad. And that plan has got to include everybody. If you, again, have pets, pet-friendly hotels. A lot of people like to come visit us at Paradise because we're by the beach. Go visit them. Anywhere out of here in a comfortable place is better than staying for a bad storm. And if you have multiple options, that's even better. I live down in Morehead City. My option used to be Baltimore, Maryland, where I grew up, and then out in South Carolina. Well, my parents are down now by me, so option A is off the table. So now it's mountains or somewhere opposite of the storm. It's not always going to be just Raleigh. It's not always going to be Virginia Beach. It's got to be opposite of the storm. You can't go a certain distance and just say I'm away from it. Sometimes our mountains and inland areas get hurt worse than we do. So have options. A shelter is a last resort that you want to be at. We get a lot of questions about sheltering, where to shelter. That's a safe place, but it might not be the Hilton or the Marriott. It's just a safe place. It's not designed for comfort. So that's really a last place you want to be. The reason why we really spend a lot of time on this is we're quite vulnerable. We're the most frequently impacted stretch of coastline in the entire United States. So we've locked the doors so you can't leave. It's too late. You've already decided to live here. We get a lot of storms. That's just the way it is. But it's our responsibility to be prepared for this. Some years we don't get anything. And look outside today. We live in an awesome place. So if we're going to live in an awesome place, then we just have to, take some small steps to be prepared each year, and then we move on with life. It either happens or it doesn't. To give you a little sample, for those that are newer, those that have been here, these are some of the names. And the young lady up front she was mentioning some of these when we were playing that trivia game. The Irenes, Michael, just a tropical storm, Dorian, back in the 90s, Dennis, Bonnie, Bertha, Isabel in 03. And that's what Highway 12 looks like sometimes when we get some of these bad storms, either covered with water or cut off. In this case, this is a picture from Irene in 2011. Hurricane season's long. We're at the end of July, so we're just now starting to get to the peak of the season. So after August 1st through about September 10th, the chance for a storm dramatically goes up. So we've had storms as early as May, and we've had storms well into October, but those chances day by day by day go up. It's based on water temperature. It coincides with the peak, which is around September 10th. But look at those storms, Hermine, Irene, Dorian, Florence, and then Matthew and Sandy into the month of October. So my challenge to you is when the kids go back to school, your grandkids, kids, it's after Labor Day, and somebody starts to utter those words, it looks like we made it through another hurricane season. Stop them before they say that. And again, we've had storms into October, so it's a long season. It's not too late to prepare. In fact, you really should be, doing that now as we ramp the season up itself. We've improved a lot with forecasting. We know usually what's going to happen and where it's going to happen. Sometimes there's slight, areas where we're off, but our biggest challenge is getting people to believe it could really be that bad or could actually happen. And one of those challenges by far is the category. And I know we're recording this, but still don't be shy. If you've said the following phrase, or maybe your significant other said, I'm not gonna leave unless it's a 2, right? There's no way I'm leaving unless it's at least a category 3. If it's not category 3 or higher, I'm not leaving. A lot of people make those decisions based on the number, and it's important. I was concerned when Florence came in as a 4 down where we live. I was concerned. It's part of the puzzle. I am not saying to ignore it. What I am saying is do not make that the only decision point on whether you stay or leave or get your kit or any of that. We've had a lot of just ones. Ophelia, Matthew, Hermine was just a tropical storm. I'm going to show you some images of a tornado that hit on Hatteras Village. Michael here in Manteo, just a tropical storm. Would tell that to people that had flooded cars. We've had a lot of death and dollars lost through 2020 because of just one. So please do not just focus on the category itself. If you're going to spend your time on anything, it's water. Water is what kills people. It could be storm surge, it could be heavy rainfall, or it could be rip currents. And again, these are all images. Water is very destructive. About 85% of deaths in a hurricane are water related. Let me say that again. 85% of deaths in a hurricane over the last 60 years. This is not a one-year statistic. This is not from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. The last 60 years is water related. Category doesn't show up in that. You could have a tropical storm with 30 inches of rain. It's not even going to have a category rating. So water, water, water. In Florence, in the state, we lost 15 people. 11 of the 15 were in cars. So it's usually in the car. It's not that the water comes up. Storm surge can come up really quick, but usually people go in areas they shouldn't be out in a storm. Past experience can be good, but it can also be a bad thing. Sometimes people that have lived through storms may not realize they weren't on the worst part of the storm. That yes, they went through Irene or Isabel, but it could be worse next time. No two storms are alike. These are examples from our community. This is not across the country. This is down on Highway 12. So no two storms are alike. Just because you have not been flooded before doesn't mean you won't be next time. And then we don't want you to anchor on a forecast. Remember back in the tropical outlook, I said you don't need to check this 4 times a day, and you don't need to drive yourself crazy. You're going to want to watch all the hurricane updates, and certainly you can do that. But at least check once a day. I'd say in the morning and then maybe in the evening before you go to bed. Just stay on top of it. So if we get a storm next week and the forecast comes out that it's going to head toward Bermuda, and it comes out on Saturday that, hey, it's going toward Bermuda, don't just say, hey, looks like we missed one. That's fantastic. Continue to follow that, because sometimes what will happen is it will shift toward us. So don't anchor on just one forecast. We have talked a lot about preparedness prior to the storm, and that is very important. It's equally as important after the storm to not rush back. When you're made the decision to stay home, stay home. Don't go driving around looking at storm damage. Don't be traipsing through your yards. We have lost people in eastern North Carolina that have gotten infections from being in the water. That water is not good. You don't want to be in it. If you get a generator, know how to use it. Not in a garage. We've lost people because of carbon monoxide poisoning. This has happened. This is not a concern of ours. This has happened. If you're not usually on ladders, if you're not usually doing a lot of yard work, we've lost people to heart attacks. So right now, about half our deaths occur after the storm. So don't rush to get back. Don't rush to clean up. It's going to be a slow process anyway. So take your time. And if you've got elderly neighbors, you've got people that need help, help them so that they're not doing it on their own. We're going to end with this, and then we're going to turn it over to Mr. Drew. If you're not supposed to focus on the category, what should you focus on? It's these things up here. Rain, 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 water, water, water. So flooding, surge, rip currents. Yes, you should pay attention to wind. Yes, you should pay attention to tornadoes, but it's really water is our biggest issue. Specifically in Dare County, it will be storm surge. Hatteras Island, parts of, Highway 12, not only can they get flooded with water, you can be cut off, especially down toward Hatteras Island. So storm surge is our big one. We will give you values. I'm going to talk here in a second, 2 to 4 feet, 5 to 7 feet, whatever it is. It's a low-lying areas by either the sound or the ocean that are usually dry and the water is that much higher. That doesn't include wave action. So waves on top of it can add even more devastating impacts. And that last point does not have to make landfall to cause storm surge. Matthew never made landfall in Dare County, and it caused some of the highest surge we've seen. Matthew never made landfall in Dare County, and Nags Head, Kill Devil Hills had tremendous flooding from just heavy rain. So just please keep that in mind. This is downtown Manteo. After the storm, we usually try to take water observations so we can see historically how does it compare, so that we can do classes like this and we can just track things. So Irene was bad. The one person mentioned that as a guest in the beginning. Downtown Manteo, so just down the road from us where we stand. Tropical storm Michael wasn't far behind. That was just a tropical storm. It hit in the Gulf. Mr. Drew's going to show a video on that, and traveled over land. And it wasn't, much of a storm until it got up here. We had some strong wind, and when you have shallow water like we do with the sounds, Mr. David likes to use the bathtub analogy. You can slosh one way, and it blows out, and you don't see any water, and then comes back. So we get a lot of sound-side flooding, depending on the severity of the wind, depending on the wind direction itself. Drew's going to show you a great video on storm surge and how there's some things around the county to kind of help you visualize storm surge. We just are showing you a map in a reasonable worst case scenario. We've had a lot of 1s and 2s. We're going to have a category 3 at some point storm. And these are just some values that are potentially possible and have happened even with Isabel in the past. So anywhere you see yellow is above 3 feet. Orange is potentially above 6, and red is potentially above 9 feet. So you can see the Roanoke Island area, like where we are here. You can have tremendous surge with a category 3 storm. As we head south, certainly the backside of the sound itself, the P Island area, the visitor center. David and I were driving down yesterday, had water on the road, or not on the road, on the side, and we just haven't had too much going on. It's not from a storm. So you can surmise if we had an actual hurricane, how bad it could be. And then down toward the Tri-Villages and Hatteras Village down there. Again, we're susceptible to surge. And this is a realistic scenario. This is not some out of this world scenario. A category 3 storm will have. It's just a matter of when, not if. So those are values that we've had with Isabel and other storms in the past. So surge is our biggest issue. We do get flooding. I could probably cross out the word flash. We don't have the terrain that they have in the mountains where you have flowing water. What happens here, since we're so low lying and we've got the dunes, the water does not drain. So when we get heavy rain from even a thunderstorm, it can cause issues. This is Kill Devil Hills with Matthew in 2016. Category is not an indication of rainfall. You can have a tropical storm with no number. You can have a Cat 1 storm and produce 20 inches of rain. And it only takes about 2 feet of water to float a car. If you choose to evacuate or you choose to come back to the area, be careful, because as you get just inland, any type of small hill can cause actually true flash flooding. This is near Greenville, west of Kinston, during Hurricane Matthew. Water is extremely powerful. It can sweep a car away. Nearly half of our deaths in the country occur in vehicles. And it's not just because of the water, it's the road itself may not exist underneath it. So if you're driving at night, you may not realize it looks like that. And through these forms, on the right, that white pipe is your water. So when we talk about having a plan to leave, it's not just about you staying in your home and, oh, I would never flood, I'm up really high, I've never had any issues. It's how can first responders get to you when you have a medical emergency? And that's what the road looks like down the road from. You might be fine with your generator. You might be perfectly fine with your perfectly fortified house. But what happens when they can't get to you? Because that's what it looks like down the road. So it's not always about where you are, it's about your surrounding community, how bad it could be during a storm. Never, ever, ever cross a flooded road. We just did a talk yesterday. I don't think it's changed, Drew, right? We still don't have any,
I haven't found one, Eric.
we still haven't found any rivers in Dare County, but we're looking. The reason why I leave this in here is if you choose to leave, coming back, especially from the south, could be a challenge. I'm not discouraging it, but if you come up 95 through like Lumberton, you're coming down 70 through Kinston, you're going through Greenville, those areas can be underwater the days after and even weeks sometimes because of heavy rain. So just pay attention when you're coming back. You might have to take a different way to get back. You might be challenged by some river flooding inland. As we wrap it up, I do want to emphasize rip currents. Lorenzo in 2019 killed 4 people in our state because of rip currents. It was 2,000 miles away. It killed more people than Dorian in our area. So let that sink in. Ocracoke and Hatters Village south, but Ocracoke especially, really, really bad storm. We didn't lose anybody. We lost 4 people from a storm that was 2,000 miles away. When you get a storm like that, whether it's a nor'easter or a coastal storm, it's generating a lot of swell and you can have rip current issues at the beaches. Help us, help the county, help our community. When you see those messages, if red flags are flying and you see graphics, you might not think that you're impacting the community, but hitting that little share button on your Facebook page is helping the community get that word out. It's not a scare tactic. It's not to scare anybody. That's just the way it is. When you have a storm out in the ocean, you're going to have dangerous rip currents. So whatever happens next week, whether we get a storm or we don't get a storm, if it goes out to sea and it does not approach the North Carolina coast, we will probably be dealing with potential rip current issues if it materializes. It's still a what if scenario. So just please keep that in mind. And again, if you're a family from Ohio, not picking on Ohio, and you've paid to be here for a week, and the storm's not getting here until Saturday, you're going to be in the water Sunday and Monday and Tuesday. And it's sunny out. You might not realize that threat. So please convey that to the community. We put wind toward the bottom, not that it doesn't matter, but statistically, you're way more likely to have an issue with water than wind. Will it mess up your property? Does it cause communications, power issues? Yes, of course. And we picked Arthur. This is in 2014, July 4th weekend, around that time period. Really, really busy stretch here in our area. This was a small compact storm. It was a category 2, hit about Cape Lookout, had 100-mile-per-hour gust. For some small specific areas, it was a pretty good storm, but for the most part, wasn't a big deal. Does anybody remember Irene? I know.
Yeah.
You remember Irene?
I lived in Williamsburg.
Okay.
It was a tropical storm there. It was bad.
It was just tropical storm up there.
Yeah.
Irene was just a 1. It made landfall the same place, but it was a larger storm. It was slower moving, and everybody in this room remembers Irene that was here. Everybody. We don't all remember Arthur, and it was a 2. It was smaller and compact. No 2 storms are alike. For some people, Arthur's a big deal right where it hit, but every storm is unique. Please do not focus on just a category. They're all different. We'll end with this, tornadoes. If you choose to stay, have a way to get those warnings. Tropical storm, you're not going anywhere, that's fine, no problem. Make sure you have your phone turned on. Make sure, as Drew talks about OBX, the alerting that you can sign up through the county, make sure you have access to that. Maybe a battery powered radio, you're watching the local news. You're probably not out shopping, but these only usually have just a few minutes of time between when we issue the warning and they happen. This one in Hatters Village, the folks got the warning and left that structure, and they were alive to tell the story because they got those warnings. So have a way to get a warning. You might say, well, I'm not going anywhere. Yes, but you might need to get downstairs, lowest level, when we issue one of those. So I'm going to turn it over to Drew now, but I want you to look at a couple of those bullet points. We get a lot of storms, most vulnerable stretch of coastline. We live in an awesome area. I don't have any control as much as people tease us about if we get storms or not. We don't have any control over that. And I can prove it because I'm supposed to go on vacation next week and we might have a potential something, right? Of course. So we don't have control over that, but you have control over making your kit. You have control over doing something today, getting that, pack a bottle of water on the way home. You have control over sharing this with a neighbor. You have lots of control over that. You're ready. If we get something, you know what to do. And if we don't get anything, then you're better prepared for the following year. That is my email. Mr. Drew is going to come up and do a more county-specific part of the talk. If you need anything from us, want to take a tour of the office, you want this at your church, your HOA, we're trying to get more in front of the community. Just send me an email and we'll make it happen. At this time, I'd be happy to take any questions from the audience or virtual. And then I got to tape that on. Anybody have a question in the room? And I'm going to peek at the online audience before we turn it over to Mr. Drew.
Yeah, as Eric's doing that, I just want to make a mention of a dollar figure Eric used when he was talking about something. He said $4. $4 of tax dollars is what it takes from each of us to run the National Weather Service. I would just encourage you, if you hear talk about the Weather Service and potential reductions in funding, $4 isn't much. That's a Starbucks cup of coffee. I think it's actually $3.50 is a Starbucks cup of coffee. But the Weather Service is always at risk in our current budget climate of being underfunded and not being fully funded and really not even growing. But if you have the opportunity and you hear anything being talked about the Weather Service, and drop a note to your elected officials, whether it's Dr. Murphy, Senator Budd, or Senator Tillis, they need to know how important the Weather Service is to us here on the Outer Banks. They need their backing. They need their people. They need to fill the positions they have. We got an amazing group down in Newport Moorhead City. Eric and David do, but their budgets, important things like the Weather Service need to be properly funded. That's not a political statement. That's just a reality that they're seeing cuts in their budget that we need to voice. So now that Eric's got me up, I'm going to say get ready. And Eric, thank you for baking the cake. As I said yesterday, those that have been with us before, last time we did this, I started off and handed it off to Eric. Eric really went and put a lot more ingredients into the cake he baked and set the stage for what I'm going to try to put some frosting on that cake to share a little bit more about it, what we do here in the county to get you a little bit better informed and allow you to get ready. So with that said, the first slide is, we always get asked about emergency decision making. Who makes those decisions? We did about a 5-minute video. You might recognize some of the players in the video. Some of the players in the video may not be in the positions that they are in the video any longer, but hopefully this 5-minute video will give you a sense of how we get the information in, who has the authority to make decisions, and how those decisions are implemented. It's so much better than me saying it. I'm going to let the video talk for itself. So here we go. Hopefully that video gave you some insights as to how decisions are made in the county. One thing you saw in the video, a gentleman at the end was standing like this up there, blue shirt, gray haired guy. His name is Scott Kennedy. He's an incident meteorologist. He works for David down at Newport Morehead City. When we have an event, that was for Dorian, when we need on-scene support, the Weather Service will send an incident meteorologist to us. And that brings that person right up in front to sit with our senior leaders to give them the best information possible as to what the weather's going to do. It also puts somebody in our community to help us get those point forecasts as to what we're seeing across the community as the storm comes and goes. Scott was able to brief some of our responders. Don't go over there yet. It's going to change. Go over here. This is why we need to start things. So the decision-making process, well, an elected official has that authority. We're getting them the best information possible so they can make the right decision at the right time. And we're using our weather service professionals to help us do that during tropical weather events. So great tools that we have available to us. So with that said, there's always things to do. Eric had, I think, this very similar slide in his presentation, but things to do now: determine risk, get prepared, understand the forecast, which I hope you're able to do a little bit based on what Eric shared with you, and how to get alerts and what to do before, during, and after a storm. So I'm going to hit on a little bit on that, just the things that we do here in Dare County. Eric mentioned risk, and I really like he adds that it's not just about where you live. It's about your life story, things that are going on with you, your family, and everything else. But if you're new to Dare County and you look at your flood risk profile and it tells you you're in a particular flood zone, does that mean you're going to get wet? Or you're guaranteed you're not going to get wet if you're in the X zone? No, it doesn't. And recently our flood maps were updated, and we had a lot of areas that have historically flooded move out of the AE zones and into the X zone. So, and that's probably been maybe a benefit for some of you. Maybe you decided that you got to reduce the flood policy, or maybe you made a decision to drop your flood insurance because you don't need to have it because you don't have a mortgage any longer. The X zone does flood. It does flood. It has flooded, and it will flood again. Please, if you haven't thought about insurance, do it now. Make sure your homeowners policies are up to date. If you don't have flood zone, flood insurance in the X zone, think about it. The X zone does flood. And I hate to say it, but without insurance, there's not anything else that's really going to help you. You can't rely on the government to help you. You got to take care of it yourself. Insurance is that. So the X zone does flood, and there are more people in the X zone than there were based on our past flood maps. So just keep that in mind. How deep will it get? Eric mentioned a video about our storm surge poles. This is it. I'm going to show it to you. It also talks about our flood inundation mapping and alerting network gauges that are around the county, and we'll give you some insights on those. So I'll play it and we'll talk a little bit about it. I do hope that video gave you some insights. If you've seen the polls, you didn't know what they were. Now you do. The nearest one to here is over in the aquarium. So we have one out there. So our visitors are coming to the aquarium. Thousands of people every day get to see it. And it's not just residents. We want the visitors to know well as well, because we need to get them to get up and go too. They need to understand what storm surge is. The flood inundation mapping and alerting network, the website has just recently been modernized. It's a newer, more graphical user interface. It's a much better website. But you can go to the Feynman website that's owned and managed by the state. You can put in your information. You can pick the gauge nearest to your house, and it'll tell you when the water's going up and down. So it will say, hey, Bobby, it's going up and down. You'll get a text message that says it's risen above the levels you want to see. It'll tell you that. So it's good, especially if you live on the sound and you start to get messages saying the water's going out, the levels are dropping because the wind's pushing it out. It's time to think about it, and it's going to tell you when it's coming back. The levels are changing. So the state owns that process, but it's a really neat website and very simple to go and get those alerts on. So I don't think Eric mentioned it today, but yesterday he mentioned hurricane evacuation zones in his presentation. And how many do you think we have in Dare County? Does anybody know what zone they're in? Well, you can use the lookup tool, and you can find out what zone you're in by just going to Know Your Zone, nc.gov, and putting in your address in, and it'll tell you what zone it is. Yeah. I'm going to save you the chase. We got two. One is Hatteras Island. So if you know you live on Hatteras Island, you're in Zone A. If you don't live on Hatteras Island, you're in Zone B. So anybody else is in B, anybody on Hatteras Island is in A. And when we describe the evacuation areas, we will use Zone A and Zone B, but we will also say Zone A, Hatteras Island, unincorporated villages of, and we will say if it's B, Zone B and all the towns of north. So we try to keep it simple, but we do have only two zones in Dare County, and that's how we message those. If you're somewhere else in our state or anywhere, and you're visiting during hurricane season, and you hear your evacuation order might be on knowyourzone.gov, put the address in where you are, and it'll tell you what hurricane evacuation zone you're in. It's a great tool, not just here, but anywhere in our nation that has evacuation zones established.
Drew, I'll hand these out because it also has a bid in there. This is from the state,
Yeah.
so you guys can see that.
So how do you get out of here? Yesterday when we were down on Hatteras Island, I said it was pretty simple. You got to get on 12 and go north. It's not much more difficult here. You got to get on the road and head west. 158 up through Chesapeake and up into the Tidewater area may get very congested. We promote, and we have this up here, using Highway 64 to get to the west. It'll get you there quicker, and at times, if there's a lot of congestions up in the Tidewater area, it may get you there easier and quicker to get to the other side of 95. But 64 will get you there. 158 will get you away from us. But those are the evacuation routes, and they're marked with signs that'll take you there. And for us, it's pretty simple. We're traveling those bridges all the time in and out. So, but that's what the evacuation routes are. Please have an evacuation plan. I'm going to start off with, again, please have an evacuation plan. Even if you're certain you're never going to leave, please have an evacuation plan just in case you change your mind. Bob, do you have an evacuation plan?
I do, it's right here.
Yeah, I have one too. I come here. I think Bobby's family goes somewhere else though. My family goes somewhere else. Our plan includes not just us, what we're going to do, but it includes what our family's going to do, because we want them to be safe so we can focus on what we need to do here. But have that plan. Don't wait to execute. It's not going to get better with time if we've ordered mandatory evacuation. Get ready, have your plan, and go. Take your kit. That's why you have the kit. Because you don't want to end up in a shelter. You want to go to someplace you've planned for, right? Eric mentioned the shelters are not the greatest place. I'm going to say, last time I said it yesterday, I think it's 5 times maybe. You don't want to go to a shelter. The shelter is a safe place. Eric mentioned your friends and family to come and visit you every summer. Go visit them. Call them now and say you're coming. If you hear mandatory evacuations being ordered in Dare County, I'm coming to see you. There's no doubt about it. Have a couple of those spots. If you have friends in Virginia, have one if the storm's coming out, going to impact the roads to the south. Have one out west. If you don't have that network of family and friends out there, find that hotel. Know that general area where you're gonna go and have a plan to get there. Second time, don't rely on a shelter. Shelters have no amenities. You might not get even a hot meal. You might not get a cot. You will get a safe roof over your head. You may get a blanket. And they're gonna be amazing people there to take care of you. But it's not gonna be a great event for you. That was the second time. I'm gonna say it one more time. Make your plan. Don't include a shelter. Find someplace else to go. Talk about your plan with your family. Know what you're going to do and make those plans now that do not include a shelter. Okay. Last resort, you need to get to a shelter, call us. We can transport you there. We will get you to a shelter so you're safe. But make sure your plan has that at the bottom. Everything else has failed. I can call the county and they'll get us somewhere, okay? Was that 4 times, Eric? 5. So have a plan. Please have a plan, if nothing else. To help you get that plan, our state has a website called readync.gov. FEMA has a website as well. The readync.gov is tailored to North Carolina. It addresses all threats and hazards. You'll see there's things up there about sheltering, things up there about just about anything you can do. Down the bottom, there's plans, other clicks. You click on those, it'll take you to the information you need. If you don't know what you need in that emergency kit, if you haven't refreshed it in a while, it'll give you the list of things to put in that emergency kit. It's there, it's available to you each and every day. They also have a page on the website, if you click on the shelter page, that the family that came to visit you, they didn't like you after they left, they're not gonna let you in the house, the hotels are full up, all that, you gotta find a shelter. This will illustrate the open shelters in the state of North Carolina. It'll take you there, it'll give you directions to get there as well. So that's on the readync.gov website. It's a mobile piece. You can show it on the phone. It's there for you. FEMA has a site that does that as well, but there are options to get there for how you need to get going. Readync.gov is the spot to go for those type of things. This is, I'm hoping this video is going to work. I had some troubles with it yesterday, but checking on your neighbor. Does anyone need help? We have a special medical needs registry in the county where people can sign up to get their name on the list. If Eric mentioned, if you're on, he's worried about air conditioning, but if you're on oxygen and you need something in your home that is powered, get onto the medical registry. Folks are going to call you. Let me play the video, and Chuck Lysette's going to tell you all about it. When I talk to my peers in other counties across our state, I always realize how lucky we are to be in Dare County. Our social services department's amazing. Not many other counties put that level of attention to take care of those people who have a need. If you're on that list, you're going to get a call from somebody who cares about you. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to help you out. They're going to help you solve a problem if you have it. We're blessed to be in Dare County with the people that run our social services department. Chuck mentioned OBX alerts. How many have already registered for OBX alerts? Please. That's good. If you haven't, please do. There's a video in here. I'm not going to play since I saw almost the majority of hands going up. But OBX alerts is where you can register and we can get information to you because you want to get it. There's other things you can select in there. Chuck mentioned the Smart 911 profile. You can put information about your home. You can put information about everything you need. And we can pull that. And we can see where we have people that may have special needs that we can look and focus on those areas. So please register for OBX alerts. If you have questions about it before you leave, we can help you with that. If you just want to get the county-wide alerts, you have people coming to visit you and all they want is the county-wide alerts, all they got to do is text their emergency alerts to 77295. They'll get signed up, and when we put out the mandatory evacuation order, they will get that. If they don't want it anymore, all they got to do is send stop. Eric mentioned tornado watches and warnings. Please make sure on your phone that you have a government alert notifications turned on. It won't matter if it's charged up and plugged in and ready to go if you haven't turned on government alert notifications. The only alert notification you will get without having them turned on is one that comes out of Washington, D.C. You will not get the tornado watch and warning unless you have them turned on your phone. You will not get the Amber Alert. You will not get the message from us that you need to do something when we use the integrated public alert warning system to send a wireless electronic alert. That is the alert that will make your phone go. Somebody probably saw the Amber Alert I got at like 4 o'clock in the morning the other day from somebody in Durham. That's what the phone's going to do when we send a wireless electronic alert using iPlus. So please make sure you have those government alert turned on. And that's a great source of official information. What we're putting out is official information. We want you to have that. We're taking what the Weather Service is giving us and we're pushing it out using OBX alerts. So we're going to show that one. We do have a great Love the Beach, Respect the Ocean program. Eric mentioned lives lost to a distant storm. I forgot the name, Lorenzo, just a couple of years ago. Anybody who comes to the beach can just text OBX Beach Condition 77295. They'll get a daily weather forecast, what's going on at the beach. So if you've got friends and relatives coming, they want to know what's going on, just do that, or you can sign up in OBX alerts and we get that information to you. We always get asked about reentry, and there's a good reason why, because people want to get back to their home. We truly hope that you're making the decision to evacuate because you want to be safe and you want to get away from the hazard. We want to get you back home as quickly as possible. We get a lot of feedback that I'm not going to leave because it took too long. I'll never get back. My business, my home's there. I'll never get back. Well, if we're having to get into a home to dig you out because she's perished in the storm, we'd much rather have you wait somewhere else rather than you coming back. So please realize we're working diligently to get our county open as quickly as we can, but those decisions are driven by public safety. We want to make sure the place is somewhat safe before we start bringing people back. We want to make sure we have ambulances that can help people. We want to make sure the wires are up off the ground. We want to make sure there's law enforcement presence wherever they need to be. We want to make sure we have some food and water that's available to you when you start to come back. When you do come back, hazards may still exist. So you need to be mindful of that. It's not going to be the place you left. It's going to be the place that's left after the storm passed. And there's still going to be hazards out there. And there still may be prohibitions and restrictions in place. There may be a curfew. There may be other things in place. Getting you back may take a long time. It may take a long time. It may be a pocket of area where it takes longer than another part of the county. But our goal is to get you back as soon as we can. We want to get people back. We want to get our economy going. We want to get our people's lives going again. We want to start that recovery process. We want to move forward. But it may take a long time. And so please bear with us and realize we're working diligently to get you back as quickly as we can. We do use a staged reentry process. Priority one is for those people that we need to have here to run our EMS trucks, to do the fire, all of those things are essential people. Then we have permanent residents, critical businesses. We need to get you back. We need to get our businesses open. We need to start the recovery process. Then we get into priority three, our great non-resident property owners and our non-critical businesses. And then we start opening up to the public. You can get a reentry permit, and I'd say you probably have one already in your pocket. If you're a Dare County resident with a Dare County address on your driver's license, that'll work to get you through the checkpoint. But having one printed out that you can get online and putting that in the windshield and having that driver's license ready in case they stop you and say, show me it, I want to compare it. You should have both. But if you don't want to ever get a reentry print, as long as you got that Dare County driver's license, the North Carolina license with the Dare County address on it, that'll get you through the checkpoint. We do them all online. It's a pretty simple process. They're available to you. This is my next to last slide, and it says, don't be Tom, be Debbie. Eric, we've mentioned Michael a couple of times. Michael was a tropical storm here. Michael wasn't a tropical storm when he met Tom and Debbie. Michael was a rapidly intensifying Category 4 storm in the Gulf Coast, I think coming into Florida. Michael brought them 9 to 13 feet of storm surge. 9 to 13 feet of storm surge. We've seen close to that here. We may not have seen 13 feet yet, but it's not out of the possibility. So I'm just going to show you this and ask you, don't be Tom. Debbie's got a little bit better story. So please have a plan. With that, OBX alerts is available to you. Storm surge, hurricane guides, you have them. Please, if you have friends you want to give them to, we'll have some more. It's also available on our website. And that's my side. And I'm sure Eric and I are wide open for any discussion or questions, both in the room and online.
So at this point, it's all yours. You can ask questions. I'm going to come up here and see if we have any online ones as well. Before you do leave, again, for those that are in the audience, take those home with you. There's some more brochures at the back that we brought on some other aspects of weather, whether it's heat or flooding. And for those online, Drew mentioned you can get the PDF version of the hurricane guide through the county as well. It goes back to the beginning of the talk. You took the time to sit at home and watch this, or to come in here today. Very, very nice day. Take one step of action. If you haven't even started your kit, get some water, get some canned goods. I was remiss to say, some of us can't get all the supplies this weekend. That's why we talk about this all season. Get the most important things early, like canned goods or water, and then a couple weekends from now, get some other items. So spread it out. That will spread out the financial impact and ensure that you actually do it. So just do one step after today and you'll be well on your way. But appreciate you joining us. If you got any questions, you can ask them now. If you're shy like I usually am, I may not seem like it. I usually ask one-on-one. So we'll be here through the end.
I do have a question. Okay, the storm surge, since I just found out, that was very helpful, that's the number one, not the category of the storm coming. So say like the storm coming up the coast now, can I, without going to FinMan, can I just get that off of that cone-shaped chart, which is the one I usually look at, that storm surge button? Is that going to give it to me for Dare County though? Because I will look at that first now to see.
Yeah. So we'll break a couple of things down because you had a lot of good information in that question. The first one is the storm next week. There isn't a storm yet, so don't worry too much. That's
Okay, so I'm just giving that as an
You
example.
worried me. I know, I was looking at my phone. It is a potential. I'm just teasing you. It is potential. There's nothing is formed yet. You know, we're talking 5-7 days. That's plus, so that's way out there. So don't worry too much. But on the cone map you referred to, that just shows where the center's going to go.
Mhm.
But on our page, on the Hurricane Center page, and Dare County would push it out. When we get close enough to a storm, usually like 2.5 days out, that's when that map is created and you will have access to that. That'll be out there. Links to it, the county puts it out, it's on our, so if you, weather.gov/Newport, it is on that page.
Oh.
Let me ask,
Okay,
this year, the cone has got, I think one of the pictures Eric showed was a lot of information laying under the cone
Yes.
where there are storm surge watches and warnings. There are boxes underneath the cone that say these watches and warnings are in place. I think you'll be able to find all of those storm surge watches and warnings that'll tell you there's something potential going to happen. And when you click on the Hurricane Center's webpage, you can go to the storm surge potential map and it'll bring up what they're forecasting for the entire nation. But you can zoom in on it and you can get down. You can't get down to the street level with it, but you can get down to a level where, okay, it looks like I'm going to be 4 to 5 feet here, but over in Hatters, it's going to be 7 to 8 feet above ground. And that's all on the Hurricane Center's website. And this year, I think it's still a work in progress. They're laying out all of the watches and warnings that are on land underneath that cone to make it ready and available to people. Remember that, right, Eric?
I think it's August 15th, or it's coming up. The local news will also say it. You know, you're going to hear numbers, and we all use the same numbers. Nobody does it on their own. And then on that website, you can zoom in a little more, not to your street, but you can get a little finer detail than what you might see like on the local news.
okay, because like
And
I
that'll be
read,
where the forecast, and that's what they're thinking is going to happen on this particular storm.
well, like Irene, that was a real surprise, okay? So that flooded, you know, there here along Manteo, the businesses and all kinds of, and homes and cars and things. And it was a surprise. I was here then and it was a surprise. And so I thought, well, if we'd known more so that there was going to be this surge coming from the sound side, the wind was going to come that way, then maybe it would have helped.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Jamie Roan was in one of those videos. He's the deputy director of the Hurricane Center. I think he might have been a founding member of the storm surge unit at the Hurricane Center. He's from Roanoke Rapids. He knows our county. He knows us. He loves us. And he saw the need to develop that storm surge. And they just recently put a lot of effort into refining the sound side mapping and the modeling for our sound side flooding, because after many of the storms, Irene, others, they come up, they do the surveys, they take the feedback, and they put the effort in to give us better fidelity on what's going to come from the sound in addition to what comes from the ocean. So we have a great partner down there at the Hurricane Center that really knows us, cares about us, and is looking out for us.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And then I was going to ask too, can we get a poll? Can we request to have a poll put close to where we are? I mean, I'm just asking.
You know, it's funny, I get asked, I'll tell you a little bit about how we made the polls. It was a great effort. We saw the idea, we came up with it. I found a company that makes poles. I asked them how much it would cost to get a painted pole. I couldn't afford it. So I turned to our staff here and I said to our public works guys, "Can you guys paint?" You go, "Yeah." "Can you paint the poles?" "Yeah." "How much?" So it cost us about $28,000 to do the 28 poles we have. I turned around to Bobby, I'd love to get more poles out. Sometimes you get too many poles, but I just have to figure out it.
Our goal is to get holes where the public goes. We're not going to let everybody yard, but where there are access points, all those places where people will go to see. Again, the idea is to create a awareness. When you go to the beach and you see that hole and you see, this is what 3 feet looks like, and then you look down where your house is, my goodness. And so that's the point of that. And so we're trying to get them, it will probably expand, but it will be in places where people access and where we can create that awareness.
And what I was thinking about, maybe we'll do a scavenger hunt or something. Go find a pole and just put the thing out there and give out a prize at the end if you find all 28 poles. And you have to go to Miami to find the 28. Just one's down at the Hurricane Center because they saw it as a great best practice. But maybe that's something we could do, just get people out and looking for the poles and get to see them.
Did you ask about the poles?
Yes,
Do you live like along the water? Like, do you get water?
yes, here in the north end. And near just the other side of Elizabethan Gardens, right up there.
Okay, so you get water
Yes.
by where your house is?
Yes,
Um,
in the community.
We don't have the fancy poles Dare County has, but we have installed what are called staff gauges, and it's to report what the water level is. So we have done that to people that are willing to report water to us, like water levels, but we can talk at the end about that. So they're not for, like the commissioner was saying, they're not for awareness, they're more for like, how high did the water get? Because that helps us for forecasting in the future, but we can talk at the end.
Okay, all right. And I had another question about that last, if I may ask another one. That showed the devastation with Debbie, the example of Debbie who left. That was a lot of devastation, but that wasn't all from water, that was from wind as well.
That was storm surge.
Oh, that was all storm,
Yeah.
that example,
They had
that
a
flood
lot of
was
wind,
storm.
but that damage was.
That was storm, that was.
Water is
Wow.
extremely, if
Oh
you have a
my,
10 to 13 foot wall of water is
Wow.
extremely powerful.
wow.
That's water. That's a great question though, because Michael had a lot of wind. Yeah.
It's only that side of the water,
Yeah.
doesn't count the waves, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet on top of that. So the wave action does a lot of damage. The surge will wipe it all out. In Patterson, in Irene and Isabel, we had those waves. We had dwellings in a hotel, I believe, on the ocean front that took the broadside of that. And we had damage similar to what you saw in that picture in those hurricanes. So it can occur here.
I think when Debbie said, it was her new house.
Right,
So it's built to code.
yeah.
So if you think about a house that isn't as new as hers was, those are the ones that aren't there at all. There's nothing left.
That's a really good question.
So would storm surge have prevented, if people had known that storm surge level that was expected with 2 or 3 days out, then that would tell you leave or get out of here. And she knew that,
There was a storm surge watch and warning in place for that
for that
storm
storm.
because of the advances they made in the.
So a lot of times people know, but now, like you mentioned, Irene, like we've gotten a lot better. Not that we get every single to the inch right, but the technology has improved a lot. Now it's people actually believing that it could be that bad. So we just had it with Ian in Florida that so believing that it could be that bad. So the watches and warnings are out, the values are out. Are we a foot here or there? Offshore, but it's just, hey, I've been here forever. I've been through it. It could never happen to me. And not having the imagination of it could be bad.
So for boy has imagination, I'll use Irene again. In Irene, we evacuated. We had this slosh back that we talked about where the water went out of slosh back. And we had tremendous flooding in Rodanthe and the villages. We did a mandatory evacuation. In the evening of that storm, we got a phone call from Rodanthe. There was a house on fire, and there was a couple in the house that didn't evacuate, and the water was 6 feet deep. And we couldn't get a fire truck, we couldn't get an ambulance, we couldn't get a helicopter, we couldn't do anything to help those people in that house. lucky for them, their neighbor had a John boat. They floated the John boat over, the people jumped out into the water, they put it in the boat, and they got him. The next morning when I flew over, there was a pile where that house was. So when we say evacuate, that's why. We had a situation in, I'm not sure if it was Collington or Kitty Hawk Landing, where I think it was Kitty Hawk Landing, where the water flooded the road 4 or 5 feet deep. 10 o'clock at night, we get a call, a guy's having a heart attack. You can't do anything for him. You can't get there. The wind's blowing, the helicopter can't fly. The trucks can't get through there. We have great big trucks that we get from the Army, even those can't get through there. And the fellow died, and because he didn't evacuate when we told him. So I can't stress enough when all the senior leaders get in that room and we've got Eric and his team in there with us and we're making evacuation decisions. That's why, to prevent those things from happening. So we hope people will heed the warning.
And that's why we're glad you're here, because it's not just as simple as what happens to where you are. Because I don't like to hear those stories of people being impacted like that, or for the person passing away because of the heart attack. But that hits more at home. And you say, wait, nobody can come help me. You can't call 911 and they just come and respond to a medical emergency because of the storm. Can't get there. And the irony of having a house fire, which can happen a lot when storms, things get broken and disrupted, and having all this water around you, but nobody can do anything about it because they can't get to you. That's what evacuations are about, that as well. So
Before I come over to you, and if you don't live on the sound, you're at, my house is 20 feet up. I'm gonna be an island. Nobody can still get to me. Even if you're in a high elevated area in our county, which there are spots out here where you can be up and looking around you, and you're not gonna even know what's really going on, but the water's impacting everywhere else, and people still can't get to you. And Eric was talking about, you could have the greatest home in the world, a generator, everything you need, but if you have that problem, lucky enough, you might be able to make the phone call, but the truck ain't getting to you. The help isn't getting you. You were going to ask a question as well.
I'm just curious I have 2 questions. Where the second pole is here in Manteo, and then what is the real possibility of losing electricity?
Well, there's a pole in Manteo. Right now, there's one at the boat ramp, right next to the bridge going into the Festival Island Park.
Oh,
There's
okay.
one there. And are you a resident of
Yes.
the town of Manteo?
Mhm.
Give Melissa Dickerson a call and ask her when she's going to put the second pole in that's sitting in storage. That's just, there's one at the aquarium across the street, but Manteo has 2 poles. They're waiting to finish a project over on the pier, the walkway. They're going to get the other one in. It's going to be over on behind the Maritime Museum, but it's not quite there yet. We made the video before we got them all in. But in the town of Manteo, there are going to be 2 in downtown Manteo. One over by the boat ramp, one's going to be over by the, where they just put the pump station in over there. The one that's nearest to us is on the backside of the aquarium. The aquarium has to do all those measures. That was your first question.
And then how real is the possibility of losing electricity?
I'll answer that.
It's pretty real.
I've been the county manager 17 years, and the county attorney 24 years. I've lived here 42 years. So I've been through a lot of storms. Can't remember a storm where we didn't lose electricity somewhere. So the possibility is real, and there's nowhere that's immune.
I will say our friends at Dominion Power, they now have metal poles on the causeway, which are going to be helpful, but they're not perfect. We're still going to have power outages. We have power outages when the winds pick up and knock a tree down. So it is going to happen. They have made some improvements, but as Bob just said, power's going out. And we really, as we try to get you back, we want to get the power back. And we don't want people out in the streets with black wires when we're trying to bring reentry back. So that's why we have to be patient. That's why you have to give us some time. We want to get you back when it's as safe as possible, but we also need to give room for those linemen to get out there and do the magic that they do to get those lines back up, get the trees out of the way, and get things back up and running.
yes.
Yeah, You showed some flood maps earlier in your presentation. Are those aligned to the same flood maps that FEMA provides?
So those are storm surge maps, so it's a different, it's not the same thing.
So they're not the same.
No, those are just storm surge related. I will say one thing about the FEMA ones, because there's a lot of misunderstanding, because we don't do a great job communicating science. You've heard of the 500-year flood plain and the 100-year. So that's just like your lottery ticket. You can buy 2 scratch-offs in a row, and it could be a 1 in 10 chance, and you can win twice in a row, and then you don't win for 3 weeks. It's a 1 in 100 chance or a 1 in 500 chance any year. So like I was watching the flooding in Vermont, and a lot of people said, oh, I can't believe we've had 2 500-year floods the same year. I thought it was every 500 years. It's a 1 in 100, 1 in 500 any year. So they could be back-to-back years. You could have them twice in a year. Obviously, it's higher risk for a 1 in 100 than it is a 1 in 500. But a lot of times, how would you know that? Like that's where we need to be a little better about communication.
And those FEMA maps will give you your zone, not your hurricane evacuation zone, but that'll give you where whether you're in the X zone, the AE zone, AE plus 10 or whatever, those are available on that website I had up.
Okay.
The flood and inundation risk mapping system.
The Feynman, yeah.
Not Feynman, a different system that's maintained by the state where all the maps that FEMA maintains for flood insurance purposes are.
I got you.
The maps that Eric was showing are generated out of a modeling program called the SLOSH model. It's a complicated model. It's something we can look at. There's a lot of words in it, a lot of science, but when we turn to that, that's for modeling for storms and hurricane evacuation zones. But when we were getting down to the rubber's meeting the road, the storm's coming our way, the National Hurricane Center is taking that SLOSH modeling piece, the actual conditions that are taking place right then and there, and what they're seeing in the environment, putting it into their supercomputer and generating a flood inundation mapping product that is going to tell you in NAG's head, you expect 2 to 4. And somewhere else expect this. So it's the FEMA flood maps, to me, that just tells you what zone you're in. I would set that aside. If you live in the X zone, get insurance because the X zone still does flood. But when we're talking about what's going to happen on a particular storm, what's on the Hurricane Center and their potential flood inundation mapping products, that's the best source of information.
Does everybody know what your elevation is of your house? And not just like, I guess I don't know I'm not versed in how high it is up off the ground. So if you don't know what your elevation is, as a meteorologist, when I moved down here, I was very versed in what my elevation was, and I'm at 38 feet out where I am. I want to be as high as possible. Knowing your elevation, because you could have a 10-inch or 5-inch thunderstorm and it causes flooding. It doesn't have to be a storm. You don't have to be on the sound. And if you're in a low-lying area, you're going to have potential issues. So knowing your elevation is really good. And we can help you after. I just do like Google Earth or Google Maps, but there's probably other ways you can find out your elevation. Just knowing it is good.
Dare County GIS that we maintain show you the flood zone. And if you recently bought a house, and you had to get flood insurance, you probably had an elevation certificate done. So you know what your actual elevation is, because that proves to FEMA what zone you're in. And
Elevation on your phone actually is not too bad.
Either.
Yeah, it's not 100%.
Just a word of caution about this, though. While you may know the elevation of your location where you are, you need to look at your access, how do you get out of your area? Or somebody needs to get to you. There's a bridge that's now underwater or a road that's washed out. That's still critical information. So.
You also, one other question, you had talked a little bit about the emergency management plan and the authorities in the beginning of your presentation.
Or probably me.
No, I think he actually covered it.
That's my lane.
Is it part of the video I showed?
No, I thought it was, anyway.
Yeah.
So in those authorities, I just was curious, it's more of a curious question. I assume those management plans are updated annually. And the curious part of my question is what single most important thing did you learn as an organization since the last storm here? That forced an update to your plan? What was that?
We do update and look at our plans annually. We go through a cycle, and actually James Wood, my planner, we do that. We take a look at it. It's available if you want to read it as well. It's on the website. The most single important one from the last storm, which would have been ECAS. Well, this is a joke, trying to pronounce the storm and pronounce it properly. But I think it still gets down to that messaging as to how communication and getting people to understand what it means when it's going to be 2 to 4 feet above ground. We still struggle with that. We still get asked, how do you know it's going to get that deep when I'm standing in my yard? How do we display or let them know that the science behind it is they've counted in the elevation in their yard when they've written the forecast, and it's coming across as above ground. That transition from above a datum to above ground, we still find it interesting that we can't get that point across to explain to people. If they're saying it's going to be 4 to 6 feet in your neighborhood, that's not 4 to 6 feet above mean low water. That's 4 to 6 feet above the ground you're standing on. It's that's why some of the outreach we're doing with storm surge polls and conversations like that are still very important to us.
And so I'm sorry.
After every major storm, we have an interaction meeting here where we bring in all
Lessons learned.
lessons learned. We also go to impacted areas. Normally that's Adams Island. They usually get the worst of it. And we get out there and have community meetings, and we listen to them to try to find out what we need to do differently, what do we need to do better. And almost invariably, it comes back to communication. And from when I started to where we are now, we're light years ahead of what we were. But we always learn some other thing that maybe if we would have done this or told this group, or that there's another local community group that has contacts, if we can get them signed up and get the information. They have a way to get to people that our other methods don't. We learn things like that. We have a staff over here at Public Information Office who comes in and coordinates all that stuff. And so we try to put all that together. We've got 2 people that are assigned just to social media, trying to do all that. And that's evolved over the years as well. That is inevitably the number one thing. The number 2 thing is, why did we re-enter so late if you're one point? Why did we re-enter so early if you're somebody else, depending on what your point of view is? But we always get that, and it's always a challenge to get that right.
And our ability to reach people with OBX alerts, we've had a mass notification system probably since 2017, 2018. And that was the result of a storm that we decided that we needed a better capability. And when I looked at it this morning, there were 17,290 users that would have registered for OBX alerts. We've got 38,000 people live in our county. Help us get more. Because if we're able to get to them, they'll get the message, they'll get it from an official source, and they will know better. And even if we evacuate, we can still get to you on OBX alerts, because it doesn't care if you're here. If you're in Alaska, you're going to get our alerts, and then you're going to get the information. And so anything we can do to get that, spread that, and grow that communication capability is great.
When you had the Zone A and Zone B, do you guys break that down even further? Or is it just like Zone B, you've got to go? Okay.
You go down to areas like Wilmington, they involve more than just 2 zones, just has based on where the population is, the topography, things like that down there. For us, it's pretty easy to apply that mental zone A, Adams Island, zone B up here. So and to that point, if you're visiting somewhere in hurricane season, it's probably a good idea to know what zone you're in.
Yeah.
Likewise, if you're out west, and there's similar evacuation zones for wildfires. It's always good to be aware of where you are.
In Miami, they can't evacuate the whole city. So they have evacuations and then they evacuate the heavily impacted areas. We have to know what zone you're in to know. Okay, we just say if you're North Oregon or South Oregon,
Yeah, okay.
A and D, whatever we call it, those people, that we don't have a very difficult time communicating that.
And we're so close to sea level, just about anywhere in our county. The storm surge inundation doesn't change much. Whether you're on Hatteras, it's unlike in Miami-Dade where the water's going to come in and different zones based on inundation, even up in Tidewater. They have 5 zones all based on inundation. They may only evacuate zone A, and that gets people that are right down there are going to get wet, but they may be sheltering the other zones that they have based on the typical the floods, the storm surge that's being forecast. So we're just at sea level. You know, that's it. We're at sea level, and they need to get people out of harm's way.
Like a mandatory evacuation, 64, 158, is that traffic one way going out all the time? Or? So it's going to be a 2-lane road?
There is no reversal of lanes in this part of North Carolina.
Because remember, during the evacuation comes days ahead of the storm, you've got to have preparedness in that time as you're evacuating as well. So we have to have people coming in and moving around other than just going out. And if you reverse the lanes and you prevent that movement from occurring, we can evacuate in 18 hours. And we evacuate just about every Saturday in the summer. So one thing we've got is we've got evacuation down. We can do that right because we do it every week.
I would add that I frequently get calls from people saying that, you know, there's an evacuation, can so-and-so come help me? And the answer is almost always, yes, please, given that there's enough time for this person. So part of your plan is, well, I need my son-in-law to drive out from Greenville to help me load up my car and animals and all that. That's part of your plan. That's something to consider. And we want those people to be able to come in and help our residents pack up and leave. So that's something that we consider.
We're going to evacuate.
Erica showed a graphic up there, the arrival of winds. The arrival of tropical storm force winds in our county. We don't want people traveling. We're going to say, stop, get ready to shelter in place if we're starting to see the arrival of tropical storm force winds. That's what we drive our decision making on, is the arrival of tropical storm force winds. And then we are very good, and Bobby is point on 18 hours to clear this place. But if the great state of South Carolina is evacuating, the Commonwealth of Virginia is evacuating, and everybody else, and once you get out of Dare County, you're going to have a harder time to get somewhere else because everybody else is moving as well. So we're an aggressive county. We want to get people out. We want to keep them safe. Sometimes it comes back and says, well, you guys are just stupid. Why'd you evacuate? The tropical storm didn't come. But we are aggressive. We want to make sure people are safe. And we are looking at what's going on around us, because once you get out of Dare County, you still got to get someplace safe. And if there's everybody else on the road, we want to get you onto the road as soon as possible so you can get to where you need to be. But you were going to say something.
I'll just say, when we evacuate, we're going to make sure we have time to get you out of here before the storm force winds occur. And we're going to make sure that you have daylight hours available to you to evacuate. We don't want you to be evacuated at 2 in the morning. So when we calculate those times back, that's how we pick if we have time. And when one of those storms forms off the coast of South Carolina and I get that call saying that thing's coming your way, we may not be able to accomplish that. But for the most part, the storms that we track, because we started now looking at that blip that's down south. We start looking at this stuff pretty early, and we bring in senior leaders as we get word it's likely to hit our way getting close to we something like that before the storm we're meeting, starting to get our act together, starting to get our plan together. Drew's in touch with the Hurricane Center. Weather service guys call us, coming down, we ask them. All that leads up to whether that evacuation decision was made. So there's a lot of work that goes in way before Drew just doesn't wake up and say, hey, it's time to evacuate. Let's go.
I wouldn't be here if I did that. Sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat thinking about it, but. Eric, any online questions?
I saw one on there about kit contents.
Yeah, there's one. I don't know if they're still on. We'll mention it. The one question that was earlier in the talk was what to have in your kit. Drew mentioned NC Ready. There's FEMA. There's our website. There's tons of lists out there, but it really breaks down to what you would need to be on your own for the 3 to 7 days. So food, water, medicines, things that you just take for granted that you could just run to the store and get. Being able to heat those up or non-perishable goods like canned goods and things like that. I like having like a little propane, the little Coleman, we camp a lot, little stove, so you can heat stuff on that. Having cash on hand, you know, if somebody asks about power being out, your car's not gonna work when that happens. So there's lots of lists, and it will vary based on who is in your household. And that's why we stress that a lot. If you, young kids, adults, lots of kids, lots of pets, whatever, it's gonna depend on who's in your household especially. But yeah, but I would encourage you to look at some of the lists out there because it's gonna vary based on who's in your household.
For our online participants, if you're still with us, thank you so much for joining us. For those that are here, we're here until you all have any questions that we can't answer, then we'll kick you out. But thank you all for coming out. Thank you for spreading the word.